Hi guys, this is Alyssa from the Writing Center. I am one of the graduate assistants and the manager, and today I'm going to be going over a PowerPoint put together by one of our grad assistants, Leah. This is a PowerPoint on the writing process. This can help you guys if the Writing Center is closed and you're stuck, or just to get a primer on how to start writing for one of the important papers that you guys will receive throughout your college experience. So, what is the writing process? So basically, the writing process is a series of actions in the creation and production of forming a written work. It follows the same generic steps, though it is different for everyone. What works for me in the writing process might not work for another, or starting with one thing might not be something that another wants to start with in the writing process. And throughout time, you're going to figure out what works best for you, and your writing will become more of your own. You can start putting a flair on it, and really your writing is going to become your voice throughout college. Like I said, it's different for everyone, but if you can see here, it has all the same 5 steps of writing. So in the writing process, we have pre-writing, which is always going to be your first step, to drafting, to revising, to editing, and to publishing. Publishing is your last step. And my advice is to take it one step at a time, and that starts with the pre-writing process. So in pre-writing, you're trying to find the topic. If you're handed a research paper by a professor, and they say, pick your topic, how am I supposed to even start? It can be super overwhelming to figure out what you want to start with, so using different steps in the pre-writing process can definitely make that an easier task. And different kinds of pre-writing, like said here, brainstorming, clustering, interviewing, free writing. Free writing, can be super important. You just kind of start writing about things that are important to you. Like, say that your professor kind of gives you a research question, but the topic is up to you. Start free writing your answer to that question, and you might come up with a topic that you want to narrow down with. And also, brainstorming super important, which come into the Writing Center, you can brainstorm. Especially if you have 10 ideas written down. If you come to the Writing Center, we can help you guys narrow those ideas down, or help you figure out which topic might find the best research, best scholarly resources. And we also do have a video on our YouTube regarding finding research and important databases that you can use. And also in pre-writing, you want to find some awareness. You want to, create an audience. So you want to find out who your audience is and find the purpose of your topic. You can even jot down a bunch of questions you might have about that topic, and that's okay. It's your pre-writing stage. Here's some different questions that might help you guys out when pre-writing. What kind of paper is it? Is it for class? Is it academic? Or is it personal? Or is it going to be a public speech? Do you need research? If you do need research, what's the topic that you're researching? Do you already know about it? And if not, what kind of resources do you need? Does your professor want you to use textbooks? Do they want you to use websites, journal articles? That's also super important in the pre-writing stage, is to kind of start organizing. And what I do is I actually start a folder on my desktop, and I put all of my resources in that folder. Then we move to the drafting stage. Like this says, first drafts do not have to be perfect. They just have to be written. So this is your chance to be able to write whatever comes out. And if you go back and the grammar's not perfect, that's okay. It's a first draft. This is not your finished version. This can just start helping you get inspiration and figure out your organization of your paper. Like I said, it doesn't have to be grammatically correct. It might just be, a ton of complex outlines, and then when you go back to it to do your next draft, then you can start editing grammar, punctuation, figuring out, do I want this complexity in it, or do I want to narrow it down? Maybe you want to make it broader. Different parts of the drafting stage. You can write your ideas on paper or your computer. You can connect topics with other ideas. This is when you could start to maybe make it personal. If your professor wants you to have some personal flair to it, or maybe they just want it generic facts and research only, this is when you can take the personal narrative out of there. It can be the entire paper. It just doesn't need to be perfect. A draft allows you to add and take away. And that goes on to the revising stage, which is editing. Basically, you're going to look at your paper and find what needs improvement. So if this is on your computer, highlight, add comments. There's so many tools that you can use on either Microsoft Word or Google Docs to kind of jot down notes of where you want to change or improve your paper. And you can ask yourself these questions as you're reading through. Does your thesis make sense? Do your support paragraphs reflect the true topic of the paper? And does your conclusion avoid new info? So basically, the revising stage becomes important to understanding what you want to change about your paper. So in your revising stage, this is when you can also begin editing sections of your paper. Maybe if it's APA and you need to add some headings and subheadings, this is where you can find out, okay, where's my new idea? Should I start a new section? Should I start a new paragraph? You also want to make sure that your paragraphs and ideas flow into each other with transition sentences. And another important aspect of this is you can go to the Writing Center. We can look at your transitions. Do your ideas work together? Do they flow into one another? And then you have, within the revising stage, then you have your editing stage. This is grammar. This is spelling. You can use spell check, but then you also can read your paper and look at the grammar. The most important part for me is to read my paper out loud. Have someone else read it out loud. Go to the Writing Center and have us read it out loud. A lot of times, punctuation, grammar, semicolon usage, comma usage, it becomes very easy to mess up when you're trying to figure out all of your research and your organization and you're trying to get your point across. And sometimes grammar gets put on the back burner, but that's okay, and that's why there's an editing stage. You can also call it proofreading. You can have your friends proofread. You can, proofread yourself. And you also want to pay attention to your voice and make sure your voice is the same throughout. So if you want third person, make sure the whole essay is third person. Same with first person. Try not to flip-flop between the two. Then you have your publishing stage. It's kind of clear what this is. Where are you taking your final paper to? Are you turning it into your professor? Or maybe you're putting it online in a blog or a publishing company. Either way, after your revising and editing stage, you want to share it with your audience. And finally, we're just going to go over what I talked about. Again, the 5-step writing process. As you guys can see, we have start here, pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, and publishing. And publishing is your main goal of the writing process. Is every step necessary? And you can even go back and figure out, what do I struggle with? If you struggle mostly with drafting, you can go to the Writing Center and start working on your drafting. Get different techniques on how you need to draft your paper. Use resources that are given to you by the university. And again, your writing process is different for everyone. While you're following these 5 steps throughout writing your paper, it doesn't look the same for each person. Someone might struggle more on starting a paper and do great at ending it. Someone might struggle more on ending a paper than starting it. We're all different, and finding those different processes is what helps you become a better writer. And that's also why we utilize the Writing Center at Kutztown University. It really does help if you're stuck on any of these steps of the writing process. So I just want to thank you guys for watching my presentation on the writing process. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to hit the links below for the Writing Center website or check out our other YouTube videos.